Okay. Today we are talking about understanding security operations. What are they? When we talk about SOC, which is Security Operations Centers, what are they? Now, a Security Operations Center is a centralized team that monitors, detects, investigate, and respond to cyber security threats around the clock. So when we talk about a security operations center, we are talking about a team that is online 24/7 to monitor, detect, investigate, and respond to cybersecurity threats. So if there is any attack, the people who are online to be ready to defend the organization, they are the members that work in the Cybersecurity Operations Center. So it's a team that does that. So this means that we can have people monitoring it in the morning, others monitoring it in the afternoon, others monitoring it in the evening. So normally it's 3 shifts. We normally have 3 shifts. Those that go in the morning, afternoon, and in over the night. So they are there 24/7 to make sure that they can quickly identify incidents, reduce damage, and prevent future attacks. So that ensures overall security of the organization. So when we talk about a SOC, that's all that we are talking about. Think of it as security men that are monitoring computers to make sure that nobody inflicts any damage on the organization's infrastructure. When we talk about organization, we are talking about a huge network of computers. Huge network of computers. Think of a company that supplies gas and electricity. If a company supplies those things, they are dealing with complex machines, complex platforms that when somebody is able to break onto it or somebody is able to attack it to put offline, so many people will lack electricity and so many people will lack gas. So in terms of this, it becomes a critical infrastructure and it needs to be monitored 24/7. So the reason why SOC has a lot of opportunities is that so many people work in the SOC environment. So there is always job. There is always job. Companies always need people to be monitoring their networks 24/7. So this brings us to the next one, which is called SOC models. So there are models, like there are frameworks, there are structures of how the SOC is operated. So it could be internal SOC. Internal SOC means that the organization itself has their own SOC environment, which they operate everything 100% by them. So let's say you get a job to work with Microsoft, and Microsoft has got an internal SOC. It means that every infrastructure or everybody that will be hired directly by Microsoft. Microsoft works on everything themselves. They would be operating that themselves. So it's something that is built and operated within the organization. And then you can also get a job to work with companies that call themselves, that operate the model of what? Virtual SOC. So with a virtual SOC, the company do not own anything. Everything is outsourced to a company outside. So they have a distributed team of security professionals who work remotely. So you can work in a remote environment where you'll be in your house and monitoring the infrastructure from your house. In that case, it becomes a virtual SOC. And then we have co-managed SOC. As the name implies, co-managed. It means that they would outsource or they will give part of the job to other people who are not within the organization. And then the organization will keep part. So let's assume 50-50. So they have something they have built in their company. Then they outsource some of it to other people from outside who are not part of the company, but they work on the SOC to make sure that all these things are managed. So these are a hybrid approach where internal security teams work alongside third-party personnel. So where they are doing it in this way, it becomes what we call co-managed SOC. And then we have MSSP, which is very popular. There are a lot of companies in the US here that are MSSP. For now, company that I'm working for, they are MSSP. So that one is fully outsourced security operations to a specialized third-party provider. So organizations can give everything out. They give everything out to companies that are there. They only have limited internal security resources, meaning that company will bring their own software, they will bring their own personnel, they will bring their own everything, and they will just be managing the company's own with limited resources. Some internal security tools may be only be like in effect as a supervisory role, meaning the companies would just have to supervise. They will just have to supervise. That's all that they do. So this is ideal for organizations with limited internal security resources. Sometimes they can do co-manage. They can co-manage with the MSSP, meaning they share resources together. They share resources together. So there are a lot of MSSPs. They maybe a company may be in India and they may be providing services to a company in the US. That is called MSSP. And then we have security as a service, SECAS. That is becoming popular these days, where it's a cloud-based subscription. You subscribe to it, and once you subscribe, they take care of your infrastructure. So it means that you can pay it monthly. The organization can subscribe to it monthly, where they would have resources or personnel taking care of their infrastructure, making sure that threat actors and hackers do not get access to their network. So if you have any question, kindly raise your hand and then ask. I think these are clear and these are not really difficult. So then the next one are the core SOC functions. What do SOC, when you work in a SOC, what do you do? What do you do in a SOC environment? What do you do? So all SOC models perform some core function, irrespective of the model they are operating. They all perform the same function. One, continuous monitoring. So your job as a SOC analyst or as a SOC operator or whatever you call yourself, a cybersecurity analyst or whatever you call yourself, what you will be doing is that you will be doing real-time surveillance of networks, systems, and applications for suspicious activities. So you are a security guard. Look at yourself as a security guard. But this security guard, you will not be monitoring cameras. No. You'll be monitoring networks, systems, and applications for suspicious activities and security events. So you are sitting in front of the computer with a software and you are trying to find if there are anomalies or if there are behaviors which could be suspicious as a security event. So you are there and trying to monitor, and that's all that you are doing. You are always monitoring, looking at the screen, waiting for some alert to come for a suspicious activity to be detected. And then you are also there to detect threats, threat detections. Anything that may pose as a threat to the organization's network, to their technologies and their methodologies, you are there to detect it. You detect it, you don't detect it with just your eyes. You detect it with tools, which in this training, we'll be going through some of them. So these tools will give you an alert, and when the alerts are given to you, you respond. And that brings us to the next point, incident response. So when something happens, you must respond. How do you respond? You respond by blocking. You can block what we call indicators of compromise. If you realize that there is an IP address that has come into your network, which is being used by attackers to perpetrate crimes against networks, what you do is that you block and then make a note onto it. The ones that you cannot block, you do what we call escalation. You would escalate it. As we go ahead, you understand some of these things. So these are the core functions of the SOC analyst or a SOC operator, somebody working in a SOC environment. Some of them also include vulnerability management. Here you'll be identifying, classifying, and addressing security vulnerabilities within the organizations. What are vulnerabilities? Vulnerabilities are the loopholes, things that can pose as a threat for the organizations, things that can bring the organization's network down. Those are what we call the vulnerabilities. So your work as a SOC analyst also entails identifying, classifying, and addressing security vulnerabilities within the organizations. These are important because if you go to an interview, you should be able to remember some of these points to talk about. They can ask you, what do you do? So you should be able to talk about some of the things that you do for your organization. You could also work in the threat intelligence environment, meaning as a SOC analyst, you can work by gathering, analyzing, and applying threat intelligence to enhance detection capabilities. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that you can be online searching for threats which may be part or something that can be detrimental to your organization. For instance, you have heard that there has been an attack on maybe Ukraine's electricity, and your company also deals in electricity. Your company supplies electricity, and then you have heard that there is an attack going on. Maybe UK has been hit with an attack in the same vertical. We always call it vertical. The same organization you are working, an attack is hitting some people. What do you have to do? You need to have intelligence on it. So as a SOC analyst, you can also work as a threat hunter. This training you are going through, you can also be a threat hunter. Threat hunters, what do? They find out threats that are going around, making sure that you inform your company and tell them that these companies are being hacked by these threat actors. What do? We need to prepare, because once our friends are being hacked, we need to also be aware. In our language, we say that this is what it means. So you need to be gathering intelligence to be able to be informed so that you don't get hacked. And then compliance management. Compliance management. Your work is also to make sure that the organization would meet relevant security regulations and standards. For instance, if you are working in the US, in cybersecurity, there is what we call the NIST framework, which you must abide by. If you are working in the European Union and in Europe, you must abide by laws like GDPR. So you don't operate just like that. There are laws that are binding you. If you are operating in the electricity sector, there are laws like NERP and SIP. You must be able to make sure that your organization are staying compliant to all these things. And you do this with tools and things that you'll be given to. And these are things that we'll be talking about, some of them. And then you must also, your work as a core, as a SOC analyst also involves providing stakeholders with relevant security metrics and incident information. This is what your bosses would be looking out for. Things that happen, you provide reports. You will note certain things down to tell your bosses, your supervisors about what you are doing. So that's what we call the security reporting. You will give metrics, meaning maybe today we had 100 incidents or we had 100 events, and some of them were false positive, others were false negatives, others were benign, which we'll talk about. Some of these terms are terms that you'll be talking about when you are working in the actual environment. You'll be hearing some of them. So you will make a report on those things, and that will be defined by the organization that you'll be working in. Any question at this point? Any question? Okay, we can move on. If you have a question, you can raise your hand and I'll explain to you. I just want it to be easy for understanding so that you don't get stuck anywhere. Okay, so you want to be trained to be a cybersecurity analyst. You want to be trained to be a SOC analyst. You want to be trained to be information security analyst. You want to be trained as a security operation. These are all job roles you can qualify for. Those roles I'm mentioning, they are all job roles you can qualify for. So what do you do? Specifically, what will you be doing? So in SOC environments, we have tiers. So we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So you can be working as a tier 1 SOC analyst, you can be working as a tier 2 SOC analyst, and you can be working as a tier 3 SOC analyst. So if you are working in any of these positions, what you can do are the things that has been listed here. So one, tier 1 SOC analyst, what do? They monitor alerts, performs initial triage. Initial triage means that initial investigation. Investigations that are not really deep are only surface investigations. That's what we call the initial triage. And then escalate incidents when necessary, meaning tier 1 analysts, they do basic investigations. They are mostly about what we call the 4 Ws, which we will talk about later. The 4 Ws, the where, when, what, and who. So if there is an attack, tier 1 analyst will identify who was affected by the attack. What was the attack about? Where did the attack happen? And then when, which time, when, talks about time. When did the attack happen? That is the work of tier 1 analyst. So you can get a job as a tier 1 SOC analyst. And basically, this is a summary of what you'll be doing. Or you can work as both tier 1 and tier 2. Sometimes you see a job online. These things, you will see it in the description. Remember, the job name will not only be limited to SOC analyst. Sometimes they can refer to it as cybersecurity analyst. Sometimes they can call it security analyst. Sometimes they can call it threat analyst. Sometimes they can even call it risk analyst. So the names doesn't matter, but when you read the details of the job, when you read the details of the job, you realize that they will be talking about people that will perform initial trial, people that will do this, people that will do escalations and all that. When you hear those things, then you know that they are talking about something to do with SOC. Tier 2, they handle escalated incidents and conduct deeper investigations and manages incident response. When something happens, if an event comes, we will get an alert. If the alert is confirmed to be something dangerous, we call it incident. So when an incident happens, you must respond. So tier 2 analysts, your job will be to responding, escalating. Escalating in the sense that when there will be things that happens that you do not have the technical and the resources, the tools to fight it or mitigate it. So what you do is that you escalate it. You give it to someone else, someone who is above you, because it's role-based and you are not only going to be the only one working in this industry. The reason why it is easy and also easy to get a job is that there are so many team members you are working with. Maybe on your shift, you may be working with other 4 people that are working on the same thing. So when something happens and you do not have the skills, the resources to work on, you give it to another person. And that's what we call escalation, escalated incident. You are giving it to someone else. And then there is tier 3. So these are all about experiences. The levels of tiers are all about experiences. Tier 3 are more experienced in the industry. Sometimes they have more than 5 years experience. They address complex incidents and they perform advanced threat hunting and develops detection methods. So they come out with how you'll be fighting the incident, and then they try to perform complex ones. So as a junior analyst, when you join, you'll be working under people that can train you to understand all these things and all that. When you get into an organization, all these trainings are given onto you. So as part of this training, I'll be talking more about how you can get the job and all that, and how you should structure the way you are thinking about maybe it's too difficult and all that. I try to make it so basic for you to get the job. That's the most important thing. And then the next one is SOC manager. So a SOC manager oversees SOC operations, manages team resources, and communicates with stakeholders. So my job is a SOC manager. What I do is that I supervise those under me who are in this tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And I try to manage them, just find out from them the problems they are facing. Their resources working well, their machines working well, and all that. In a cybersecurity environment, when we say resources, sometimes we are also referring to the personnel. So resources also refer to the personnel, the human beings. The human beings are also part of the resources. The applications and all that are also part of the resources. So my job is also to communicate to stakeholders, those that are above me, my managers. I speak to them about what is going on. Every month I make a report. The report, there is a template that we follow. You don't do anything from your mind. Everything is there. We use tools like Power BI to generate the report. And every month we'll meet. We meet online, and I'll present whatever has happened for the past month to the stakeholders. So that's my job. I wake up every day, I look at the reports that are there, communicate with the team members, and try to find out if there's anything. So as a SOC manager, that's what I do. And then there are also people that will be in the team. We call them threat intelligence analysts. You yourself, this training you are going through, you can become a threat intelligence analyst. Those, they gather and analyze threat data to provide actionable intelligence. What do we mean by actionable intelligence? What we mean is that companies in the UK are being hacked. A company in Canada has been hacked. And you are working in the same company. They are in government sector in Canada. They provide government services and they have been hacked. You are also working in the same environment. What do? You need to learn from them how the attack happened. So that's the job of those people we call threat intelligence analysts. Their job is to gather and analyze threat data. They use tools. They don't just go online. They use tools. There are tools like Recorded Future, Virus Total, Threat Connect, MIPS. There are several tools, which in this training, we'll be talking about some of them. So they use that to gather actionable intelligence, to be able to keep the company informed so that they do not also have same attack. And then there are people that can also work in the environment called security engineers. So this training, if you really want to go deeper, you can be a security engineer. So the SOC team too has got a security engineer. So the reason why this becomes a very juicy environment is that it has a lot of branches. A lot of branches. A big company can have a SOC team more than 20. Just the SOC team, they are more than 20. So there are so many people doing the same thing because the job of the organization depends on the SOC team. If the SOC team fails, the whole organization might collapse. We have heard of a lot of cyber attacks in the US that cost a lot of money. So why should organization not spend money to have the right people in place? If an attack happens and the organization might lose $100 million, is it not reasonable for them to spend $1 million to protect it, or even $50 million to protect it? If you would lose $100 million when an attack happens, And if you are protecting it, you would spend maybe $10 million. Which one makes sense? Are you going to wait to lose the $100 million for which you could have saved the entire thing with just $10 million? So that is what Security Operations Center is about. You need to make sure you protect the asset, making sure that when attack happens, you do not lose much. So there will be security engineer people, they will set up the tools that you'll be using. So the security engineer's work is to be able to set up tools like the SIM tools, the Splunk, the Kill Radar, all that. Your job as a SOC analyst, you go in to just monitor. So it's not really technical. People say, oh, it's too technical, I can't do. No, it's process oriented. You should be able to be a person that can follow steps, that can follow process. The next one is forensic investigator. When incident happens, there are people that do serious analysis. They can use tools to really know what really went on. Those are what we call the forensic investigator. Their job is when the attack has already happened. Think of forensic investigators as pathologists, people that investigate when somebody dies. When the thing has already happened, they can't save life. When the thing happens, that is when they come and do root cause analysis. They go deeper and then find more about what has happened. Those are the forensic investigators. They are all part of the SOC team. And then we have compliance specialists, people that come making sure that any activities that we are doing are compliant. For instance, we do not have to store information regarding people's credit card and all that for more than 90 days. If we do not have to do that, we need to have somebody in our team to always be using tools to check in that we are not breaching that compliance. Because if you breach those compliance, you might have problem with a standard called PCI DSS. If we are working in a medical center or health sector, we need to be compliant with a standard called HIPAA, which we need to be compliant. So compliance specialists are there to make sure that all these standards are all compliant. ISO 27001, we need to be compliant with all that. So the compliance specialist's job is to make sure we are compliant with that. Any question at this point? Any question? Okay. So if there are no questions, now let's go on to the next one. So we are going to talk about terms and terminologies that we need to understand for this course. So we want to talk about, so here, concept for SOC analysts. We are talking about concepts and terminologies for SOC analysts. There are people, we call them threat actors. You need to understand this. Threat actors are the people behind attacks. So who might attack your organization? Maybe North Korea is trying to hack USA. In this case, that team in North Korea or that hackers, those people in North Korea that are trying to hack USA, they are what we call the threat actors. And with the threat actors, we have several of them. One, we have nation states. Today, nations are no more using only weapons to hack, to fight. They are also using computers. So China is always trying to hack USA. Maybe you may be working in an organization where China is trying to steal things. They are trying to steal maybe blueprints about how maybe SpaceX makes their rocket. If we are working in maybe Tesla, China is building electric cars, so they also be stealing knowledge from Tesla. They can hack Tesla to steal those knowledge. There have been several attacks where Chinese government military organization are hacking USA to steal intelligence. You know, Chinese are building all sort of technologies, and normally they wait till USA build before they build upon it. For instance, DeepSeek. What about if DeepSeek had an intelligence, or they were able to do espionage from ChatGPT before launching their own AI? When they launched their AI, people said that their AI was cheaper and more intelligent than ChatGPT, because when ChatGPT came, they studied it for 2 years before bringing their own. What about they were sponsored by a government with sophisticated capabilities and were able to maybe hack OpenAI, the producers of ChatGPT, to get this knowledge, to be able to build DeepSeek? This is just something I'm making it up, that it could be because nation states also sponsor hackers to be able to do what we call espionage. So this is just something I am trying to assume here. So nation states, Russian government may be hacking USA. There is in the news. When you go in the news, you can find a lot of reports of where Russian hackers are being sponsored by the Russian government to hack USA. It's something that is common. You need to understand. These are what we call the nation states actors. And then we have the cyber criminals. People that are there, they want to hit you with ransomware. We've all heard about ransomware attacks like WannaCry, where it was able to encrypt the servers of the NHS in the UK and ask them to pay ransom. That it means that they attack your infrastructure with a malware, encrypt your data, and they ask you for money. Their motive is financial. And ransomware attack has been raking a lot of money. People are even doing what we call ransomware as a service, where you can go and then buy a ransomware and attack an organization and ask them for money. And they don't ask for small money. Sometimes they are demanding $10 million, sometimes $100 million. If you don't pay, you are going to lose your data, which is very precious to you. And those are the cyber criminals. Mostly they are groups. They operate in groups and they do these things to make money. And then we have hacktivists. There is a hacktivist group called Anonymous. Their job is ideological motives, often targeting organizations whose actions or policies they oppose. So maybe they are against the US government. Maybe they are against the US government support for Israel. These hacktivists can hack government organizations as a proof that they hate it. We all heard of how Anonymous was trying to hack Russia when Russia decided to attack Ukraine. They were hacking Russia's electricity and all that to prove that they are against what Russia is doing. Those are what we call the hacktivists. And then we have insider threats. People who are working within the organization and they are working against the organization. We call them insider threats. They may be current or former employees, contractors or business partners who misuse their authorized access to the systems and data. So they are within the organization. A typical example is the NSA consultant called Edward Snowden. You remember the US NSA agent called Edward Snowden, who is now residing in Russia. He is a typical example of what we call insider threat. He was part of the US government and he decided to go against the government. So in this case, he used the knowledge and the access that he had, because when he came out, he talked about so many things that the US government is doing. So he had knowledge. He was a former employee of the NSA, and he had access, and he used that to blow a whistle, which we call whistleblower. And then we have script kiddies. Who are they? Those people are inexperienced. They do not have experience. They go online, they buy tools, they get free tools, and they use it to inflict pain against organizations. So they are inexperienced hackers who use existing tools and techniques without necessarily understanding them. So they can go and then buy either tool online. They don't really understand how it works, but they just want to inflict pain and get whatever they want. They are called script kiddies. And then we have advanced persistent threats, APTs. They are very dangerous. They are groups that can be in a target system for a long time. They can hack into your system, and they can be in it for a very long time. We call them APTs. These are important because as a SOC analyst, you need to understand these terms. And then we have what we call threat vectors. How do the attacks attack the organization? Which path or which road lead them to be able to attack the organization? Those are what we call the threat vectors. Threat vectors are the pathways or the methods that threat actors use to gain unauthorized access to systems or networks. So the way they will get onto the network is what we call the threat vectors. So how do they do that? They do that through what we call phishing and social engineering. So, and a basic example of social engineering is that you are there and you receive SMS that you owe some fees as part of your violation of road, toll, or whatever. Those are social engineering. They are tricking you. They want to beat your intelligence. Sometimes you are there and somebody calls you, oh, I'm a member of Church of Pentecost. Yesterday I had that call. I'm a member of Church of Pentecost. We'll be having a meeting this time. And let me give you the code. They just want to take advantage of your WhatsApp. So these are basic social engineering attacks. And mostly they get people. They mostly get people because people will just give those information out. People will just give those information out. The church I used to worship with in Georgia, I see there are a lot of people like attackers using them to get onto me because they've had access to their WhatsApp group and they are calling people to make sure they can get onto the WhatsApp group and try to maybe solicit for funds, ask people for money and all that. Those are what we call social engineering. And there's also phishing, where they can send you can, like the SMS thing that I talked about. When it is SMS, we call it smishing. When it is through email, it's called phishing. So phishing, whereby they send you an email claiming to be somebody you know or claiming to tell you something that is urgent for you to respond. As soon as you click on the link might get your computer compromised and they will have access to you. Sometimes they can send you a link of your bank account telling you that your bank account has been hacked. Click here to reset. No, they are trying to hack you. Those are what we call phishing and social engineering. And then we have malware. That's very complex. The malware are the ones, malicious software. So when we say malware, we are talking about software that is bad, malicious software. So these include viruses, worms, trojans, ransomware, and spyware. Now, let me give you a typical example of a malware that is dangerous that was used by government. It was a spyware. It was called Pegasus. This was being used by government and big organizations to attack their enemies. This Pegasus was being deployed by an Israeli company called In2SOC, and was being sold to governments around the world. These were being sold to government around the world, and they were targeting mobile phones, Android and iPhones. And they had a loophole in iPhone through the iMessage. They don't need to even allow you to click something. They just send you a message to your phone and you have been hacked. Remember the guy that was killed in Turkey? Khashoggi, that journalist. It is assumed that he was hacked with Pegasus. So the Saudi Arabia government knew that he was going to Turkey, and they flew people from Saudi Arabia to meet him in the embassy to kill him. How did they know that he was coming to the embassy? Because they hacked his iPhone. So these are malicious softwares that can encrypt. For instance, ransomware, it can encrypt the organization's computer and it will disallow anyone to work. At a point in Ghana, ECG was attacked with a ransomware. And for like 1 month, they could not sell prepaid electricity to people. So these are all bad softwares that attackers use to gain access to your organization. It could be viruses, it could be worms. Worms are self-populating or self-generating viruses. They spread on their own. That's why we call them worms. When they get onto one computer and they spread to other computers, that's why we call them worms. The next one is exploiting vulnerabilities. Sometimes the makers of software, they fail to maybe enable certain things or misconfigurations. There are software problems, like previously Microsoft had an SMB attack which was used for attacking organizations. So makers of softwares can also have a flaw, a loophole in it, which attackers can take advantage. And those are what we call exploiting vulnerabilities. So they gain access through attacks like 0 days. A 0 day is an attack that has not been fixed. So they can get access and then they will try to get. And then we have credential theft, where people can steal password, your email and password, and then would be able to have a legitimate access to system. Take for instance that if by some chance I'm able to get access to your email password, and I can now log into your email, I have got a legitimate access to your email account. So that's what we call credential theft. And then we have web application attacks. There are also attacks that only targeted at web platforms like websites and all that. So these attacks include SQL injection, cross-site scripting, CSRF. You can, with your own time, you can read more about this. And I will give you more resources that can explain some of these things to you in more detail. So they exploit loopholes in web platforms. Those are what we call the web application attacks. And then we have supply chain attacks. If they know they can't get into you, they will get to your partners. Those are what we call supply chain attacks. So I know that a company called XYZ is giving you software, and I've tried and tried to hack you. I'm not able to get you. If I can hack the company that is giving you the software, and then I can get you. Those are what we call the supply chain attacks. So compromising third-party vendors or suppliers to gain access to the primary target is what we call the supply chain attacks. And then we have denial of service. I've tried so many ways to hack you, but I'm not getting you. If I can't get you, then I can disrupt your operations. I can make sure that you will not be able to work. That's what we call denial of service or DOS. We also have what we call DDoS, distributed denial of service. Here, they make it massive. They make it massive to be able to make sure that they overwhelm your networks to disrupt normal operations. So they can make sure your website can be offline. They can make sure even Twitter is offline and you can't access. So they do that to make sure that you would not have access. And then we have attack surfaces. Forgive me about the noise. I think they are trying to do something outside. So we have attack surfaces. Which platforms are they using to attack? Which platform are they attacking? Those are the one we call attack surfaces. So with attack surfaces, we are talking about network. First one, network. So they can attack your network protocols, interfaces, services, which are accessible from the internet or internal networks. So attackers can look at attacking your networks. They can also look at attacking software. You are using Microsoft Excel, and they realize that Excel is having a loophole. They can use it. You are using PDF. They know that PDF has maybe gotten a loophole. Then they can try to use it. Physical attacks surface. Maybe they know that your office, your doors are not really secure. They can come into your infrastructure and enter there, go to your storage rooms and hardware devices and maybe plug in a USB, which can give them access to get onto your network. That's what we call the physical attack. Then they can target human. They can decide to date somebody in your organization. They can decide to, these are the things you will see in the movies. So there are things that really happen. We see them in the movies, but they are the things that are happening. They can date people in the organization just to get onto you. So maybe they date one of your secretaries, and one of your secretaries will give them access. So these are the kinds that are true social engineering. They can get to know you, and by knowing you, they can inflict pains from there. They can also attack your cloud surface. So your AWS APIs, your Google Cloud APIs, and all those resources could also be compromised. And then third-party attack surfaces. So just like I said, the software that are being provided by people who are not working in your organization, they could also be attacked. They could be attacked. Those are what we call the third-party attack surfaces. Now we go on to something that is crucial, operation terms. So I am trying to make it something relatable to the actual job. When you go and take any class online, they may not relating it to actually what you go and be doing. So here we want to talk about operational terms. Terms that when you work in the environment, you'll be meeting. Terms that will be common, they will be talking about. So you get a job and they say something and you don't understand. Then you are like, you guy, are you sure you have been working in this environment? You claim to have experience. So you need to know some of these terms to be able to be aware that these are what we are talking about. So some of the operational terms are true positives and false positives. What does it mean to say this is true positive? If you work in a SOC environment, this is something you'll be hearing over and over and over and over. So you need to understand. So when we say true positive, a correct alert that identifies real malicious activity. This is dangerous. This is where we know that this is true. This is something that is really true and it's real malicious activity. When something like that happens, we call it true positive. No organization wants more true positives. When this happens, it means that you are at risk. If you get an alert that is true positive, remember, it means that you are at risk. So example, you have a SOC tool in your environment that is able to identify that truly somebody is downloading something from your environment to what we call command and control server, C2. Command and control server, C2, meaning somebody is downloading something from your workplace and sending it through a different machine outside the organization. If your software is able to detect this, then it means that we have got a true positive, meaning we have got an incident. I want it to be so basic for you guys to understand. So it means that you have been hacked or you have been compromised. So upon investigation, the analyst confirms that the machine is infected with malware. In this case, this is a true positive. If you go to an interview and they ask you what is a true positive, for which as a SOC analyst, you can be asked this question. You don't just say the definition that it's a quiet alert that identifies a real malicious activity. No, give an example. You give an example that, oh, our tool is able to flag maybe a connection that somebody is downloading something from our environment. When we do an investigation and we confirm that, yes, our devices have been infected with malware, then this is a typical example of a true positive. If you can explain this way, you will see that they are nodding their head. They will say, yes, you know your stuff. You know your stuff. So this is something you need to take note of. As a SOC analyst, you need to know the difference between true and false positives. So false positive is the other way around. It's where we get wrong alert. The thing is not true, but it tells us that it's true. That's what we call false positive. So an incorrect alert where normal activity is flagged as a threat. For instance, example is you are trying to just maybe log into your account and you forget your password or whatever, but the system says that somebody is trying to hack us. That is a false positive. It's a false positive. So an example I've given over there is that a user runs a script to update software and the tool flags it as suspicious behavior. Upon investigation, we realized that this was just a user maintenance. They are doing a user maintenance, but our systems says that, oh, we have something going on. We have something going on. So that one becomes what we call false positive. Guys, let me pause. Ask question at this point. Any question? Any question?
I think it's okay for me.
No question for now.
Okay, I hope you are following and understanding the whole point. Okay. Now the next one is false negative. Take these terms very crucial. When you are working as a SOC analyst or when you are working in security operations centers as a cybersecurity analyst, this is your language every day. This is something you talk about every day. So just take this very serious. So false negative is where this is dangerous. Our tools are not noticing everything. We are not able to catch anything that is passing through, any threat that is passing through. So a misdetection where rare malicious activity goes unnoticed by our security tools. Here If your organization is experiencing this, then you guys, somebody is penetrating through your this thing very huge. Somebody is chopping you the entire environment in a serious way. You are really hot. It means that your organization, you are not detecting anything. So your tools are not detecting the threat. So it's very dangerous. These are the most dangerous because they allow attackers to remain undetected, increasing the risk of damage. So I gave an example of APTs, advanced persistent threats. They can be in your environment for years. There have been some Chinese APTs which have been remained more than 6 months in US environments, meaning your tools are not working. They are not able to detect. An example is whereby a hacker exploits a zero-day vulnerability. What do we mean by a zero-day vulnerability? A loophole in your systems, a weakness in your system that do not have any fix, that do not have any way of fixing it. That's what we call a zero-day vulnerability. So the organization infrastructure is so loose that there is no fix for it. There would be more false negatives. So this is what we mean by false negative. And then we have benign positive. Benign positive. Example, somebody is trying to log on to a server and the password, he forgets his password for, let's say, just 5 times or 3 times. Then the system will say that no, somebody is trying to brute force, somebody is trying to attack us. This is something which is expected. If you forget your password, what is the response? The response that you will get is that access denied, you can't log in. That's what happens in your own computer when you are trying to access your computer and you forget your password. It's something that is expected. So we always call it benign positive. It is positive, but it is expected. So an alert that correctly identifies unusual behavior, but the activity is not malicious, it is legitimate, but out of the ordinary. So when you forget your password and you try to do it 10 times, the security analyst will get an alert that somebody is trying to do a brute force. In this case, the security analyst, what you do is that you call the person. You can chat the person on your organizations, maybe Zoom or Teams or whatever, and ask the person, were you the one trying to log on to your account? Have you all seen that sometimes when you forget your password or sometimes when you log on from a different machine, you get an email saying that, was it you? Sometimes you get an SMS. Was it you that was trying to access this? That's what we are talking about here. It becomes benign positive, something that is expected. Purpose of this is that sometimes we can help set our detection systems to be more intelligent, to be able to notice that it was really the person that was trying to access. So we do what we call fine-tuning our detection rules to be able to distinguish between risk-looking behavior and actual threat. So an example over here is that a system administrator logs in from a new location while traveling. The activity triggers a geolocation alert, but it's verified as legitimate, and this is what we call benign positive. We are working here in California, and then we realize that somebody is trying to access our networks from New York. It's a different city, so our systems will alert us. But upon investigation, we realized that this was something that was not malicious. This was something that was not dangerous. In that case, we call it benign positive. And then we have benign but expected. I'm explaining these terms, but you need to take note that when you go in an organization, organizations may choose to call it in a different way, but they are all the same. Most organizations call it this way. True, false, positive, it's general, generic terms that are used. So we also have benign but expected. This, we are talking about normal, legitimate activity that is both non-malicious and anticipated by the system organization. It typically should not trigger any alert at all. It's annoying. So the purpose of this is that we help avoid unnecessary alert by recognizing routine behavior that poses no threat. It's just annoying, but we just have to be aware that this one, it poses no threat. Example, we have a scheduled backup process which runs every night at 2 a.m. It's legitimate, expected. It causes no security concerns. This is benign but expected. This is something that is expected. So when you hear benign but expected, this is what we mean by that. And then we have incident severity. Everything that happens in the organization has what we call incident severity. So all the happenings or anything that is potential that could inflict pain or inflict damage on the organization's network, we give it ranking. So we normally call it critical, high, medium, and low. So this is the categorization to make sure we know that data sensitivity, how much this thing can inflict pain. So if you are looking at something that is low, it means that you may not appoint or align bigger time to something which is low. If it is medium, you will not be apportioning greater portion of your time. But if it is critical and high, then it means it's something we need to take seriously. And that's what we call incident severity. And then we have incident priority. When something happens, which one of them should we tackle instantly? For instance, an attack happens. Somebody is trying to attack the infrastructure that is used to process credit card payments. And then somebody is trying to attack a website that you use for announcements. Guys, which one would you pay more attention to? This is a question to you. Somebody is trying to attack your payment processor, which you use to collect payments in your office or in your store. And then somebody is trying to attack your website, which only announcement is displayed over there. Which one will you solve first? Guys, question. Are you here with me?
Yeah, I think the one that deals with the credit card system.
Yes. You must respond. Ben, thank you. You must respond with the one with the credit card system. It becomes the most prioritized one. So that is what we are talking about here. The incident priority. The order in which incidents should be addressed based on severity and other contextual factors such as business impact, regulatory requirements, and available resources. So when they are successful with your credit card, it will impact your business. So that one is something you must attack, like you must attach importance. So this is the difference between severity and priority. Severity is how bad is it? And then priority is when should we act on it? So in the credit card and the website giving announcement instance, when should we attend to something? Which is the priority? The one that we should attend to it first. So priority. And then severity is when it happens, which one will have the most serious impact? And then we have what we call key performance indicators. How do we measure our performance? So we have certain things we call key performance indicators, which when you join any organization as a SOC analyst, you'll be hearing. So we have what we call SLA, service level agreement. Organizations must have a yardstick, a way to be able to track the way we are attending to items. We must have time. How do we attend to things which are of highest criticality, which are arranged as high, which are medium, which are low? Remember, we cannot attend to everything in the same time. So we have an SLA, which is a formal agreement between a service provider, in this case, a SOC team member, you, a SOC analyst, and a client or internal stakeholder that defines the expected level of service, including how quickly incident must be acknowledged or respond to or resolved. This is simple. When you join any organization as a cybersecurity analyst, a SOC analyst, security analyst, or whatever name they might give it to, when they present to you, they will tell you an SLA. The SLA will tell you the time you must respond to something. You must respond to incident. You must try to resolve issues. You must be able to mitigate. So we call it SLA. Every organization will have their own. In some organizations, they call it time to notify, TTN. So TTN, they will have criticalities labeled in this way: P1, P2, P3, P4, meaning priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, priority 4. Meaning when something happens and it's of the order of critical, how do we respond to it? We respond within 15 minutes, meaning 15 minutes we must respond to it. Every organization will have their own service level agreement, their own SLAs. When it is high, within 30 minutes we must respond to it. So you are sitting in front of the computer and something comes which is critical. Within 15 minutes you must respond. After the 15 minutes, if you don't respond, it means that you have breached the SLA. You have breached SLA. So it's a contractual agreement. So that's what we mean by the SLA. So when you go in an interview, they might ask you, can you explain to you the SLAs that you were operating in your former job? You talk about it that, oh, we had P1, P2, P3, P4, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 for our time to notify, where we're talking about time we'll be able to. In some organizations, they call it MTTR, mean time to respond, the time you respond to it. Some organizations, they are also what we call MTTD, mean time to detect, the time we are able to detect. Some organizations call it to notify, time to detect. So when you see it like this, we are talking about the time that every organization responds to these attacks or incidents. And then we have TTR. TTR talks about time to resolve or time to respond. Which time are you able to correct the problems? So some organizations, you will have to go through steps. You have to call the end user. You have to find out whether it is a true positive or a true negative, or it's a false positive, or all that. It takes time. So in terms of criticality, maybe you have 4 hours to do that. Maybe you have 8 hours for high, medium, you have all that. All these things will be laid down for you, for which you would use it to work. And these fall under what we call key performance indicators, what we refer to as the KPIs. Interviews, they can ask you these practical questions. So kindly note this down. So some organizations call it mean time to detect. The TTN we talk about, some organizations call it mean time to detect, MTTD. Every time it takes to detect a security incident. So the time it takes us to detect. And then we have mean time to respond or resolve, MTTR. average time it takes to us to respond or fully resolve. So that is that. Some organizations call it TTI and all that. These are organization specific, but I try to understand it. So this brings us to the next the lesson for today. In our next lesson, we'll be talking about what we call incident response. Any question? Guys, any question? So Ben, I've recorded the lesson. I will share with you. You can re-watch again. I also share the lesson that we did today with you. You can read about. So the only advice I'll give you is that you need to spend time. You spend time, read around it, and you can read around more about things that I mentioned that maybe you do not understand, to get more understanding. Or you can reach out to me for more questions or any doubts that you might have with the lesson. Any question, guys?
No question for now.